Thanks for listening to the Swearing In podcast, where you'll hear the origin stories of those who chose to serve. So ground your gear, take a seat, and listen up. The Swearing In podcast starts right now.
Heads up! This is the Swearing In podcast, and I am your host, Marty Smith. Today is February 20th, 2022, and on this date in 1942, Lieutenant Edward O'Hare takes off from the aircraft carrier USS Lexington in a raid against the Japanese position at Rabaul, and minutes later, he becomes America's first flying ace. The Lexington's mission that day was to destabilize the Japanese position on Rabaul with a bombing raid. As the Lexington left Bougainville for Rabaul, ship radar picked up Japanese bombers headed straight for the carrier. O'Hare and his team went into action piloting F-4F Wildcats. In a mere 4 minutes, O'Hare shot down 5 Japanese G4M1 Betty bombers, bringing a swift end to the Japanese attack and earning O'Hare the designation Ace, which was given to any pilot who had 5 or more downed enemy planes to his credit. O'Hare was later awarded the Medal of Honor for his bravery and excellent aim. And yes, it says that in the write-up, excellent aim. Well, I should think so if he shot down 5 planes in 4 minutes. Well done, Lieutenant O'Hare. Now, my guest today is Army Sergeant First Class Jesse Horwath. Jesse grew up in Litchfield, Minnesota, and graduated high school in 1995. He attended St. Cloud State University for a year before returning to a construction career for the next 10 years. In 2008, he joined the Army at 31 years old. His MOS was 25 Romeo, Visual Information Equipment Operator and Maintainer. He went to basic at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, then went to AIT at Fort Meade, Maryland. His first assignment was to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, with the 4th Psychological Operations Group, Airborne, 3rd Battalion HSC, EMS Section. Jesse deployed to both Iraq and Afghanistan before being assigned to Fort Shafter, Hawaii. He exited active duty in 2021 and joined the Colorado National Guard, where he currently serves in the Joint Force Headquarters. Now, this concludes your pre-brief, so let's get on with the interview. All right, today I'm joined by Army Sergeant First Class Jesse Horwath. Jesse, how are you? Thanks for joining us today.
Pretty good. Thank you for having me on the show.
No, it's my pleasure. It's always my pleasure to get everyone's story. We're all connected in service, and that's the beauty of it. Jesse, where'd you grow up? I know we're gonna jump way back because Sergeant Horwath joined a little bit later, so we're gonna cover some business before that. But where'd you go to high school at?
So I grew up in a small town of about 3,000, Litchfield, Minnesota. Litchfield, yeah.
Litchfield, okay.
Yeah. I think
what's that by? Is that anything near anything I would know of Minnesota?
Maybe St. Cloud or.
Oh, okay.
That's
I say that okay, like I know Minnesota's. I don't know.
You know the Twin Cities, right? Minneapolis.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about 70 miles west of that.
All right.
Yeah. So I grew up there, and I was a construction worker right out of high school. And,
yeah.
I did that for 10 years. That was great.
Well, now wait. What were you thinking when you were graduating high school? I mean,
what was it? My plan when I graduated high school was, go to college and, do that whole, the whole normal route where it's like, hey, go to college, get a good job.
Sure.
Probably live in that town. And, well, it didn't work out that way.
It almost never does, right?
No.
Did you go so you went off to college?
Yeah, so I went to college. I went to college in St. Cloud for the first year.
What university?
St. Cloud State University.
What were you gonna major in? Did you have any idea?
Yeah, electrical engineer.
Oh, nice. Like, did you get a scholarship, or did you just?
No, my parents paid for the first year.
Yeah,
It was kind of their deal, pay for the first year, and then I'd pay for the second and third and fourth. But
okay,
I think I think I made it about a year and a half there.
What flipped the switch in you?
Well, I kind of grew up as a wild kid, so when I got there, I found out, look at all these parties. So I partied more than I studied, and then my grades kind of showed that.
Sure.
Yeah, but I didn't get kicked from the school or anything. It's just I was I do school, for the quarters, and then in the summer when they had summer break, I would go and do construction. And then I just realized that, well, maybe school's not for me, so I just did the construction thing, thinking that was the best bet.
How'd your parents react to that? Because they gave you a year, right?
Right. And then after, I don't even think they paid the full. I think they did 6 months, and they were like, okay, this is.
They knew.
They're like, this kid goes to school. I mean, my grades were okay. I failed only one course because that's a story we'll get to later. But so I would, they were okay. But I mean, how long can you burn the candle at both ends?
Yeah, sure.
Because everybody up there, it was always a drinking party. Let's go here. Let's go there. Let's go here. And it was, all on campus. And I don't think I was ready for school at that time there. And then, doing construction, I'm like, okay, so I'm making about 32 back then. That was in
what year are we talking about here?
So that'd be 1995, because that's when I graduated high school. And then I went right into college and then started working with my dad too.
Did he do construction as well?
Yeah, he did construction for 30 years. So.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, he got out of the service and went straight to it. And then I worked for his company.
I mean, I don't know how hard it is to get hired into construction if you know nothing about it. Something tells me that maybe it's a labor shortage, but maybe you get more if you know more. I don't know. Is that beneficial or not?
Yeah, it is. Actually having those skills, and just like even when I left the military and went through that training, but having those extra skills like in construction is a big bonus, because it's like they hire people that are green is what I call them, but usually you have to get, like, I was part of a union, the laborers union when I first started.
Yeah.
And I started luckily because I started before they mandated all that training you had to do. So basically the way it would have worked is when I hired on, I just hired on and started getting paid my full wage.
Okay.
And then about 5 years in, they came up with the union thing. It was like a junior. They had different levels that you would attain after certain schooling. So it would affect your pay, because your pay would be reduced when you first hired on.
Yeah, yeah. So they got a tradesman it up.
Yes.
Like a plumber, electrician, or anything like that.
Right. Even for like me, I was a cement mason, but I was a laborer for the cement masons, but I still fell under the laborers union first. And then after 10 years, joined the cement finishers. And then, I was like, okay, I've had enough, because you can use your body to do this, but how long will your body actually last? And it was kind of a boring job.
Was it really?
I was like,
sure. It's repetitive, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I love electronics, like computers and stuff. So I was like, well, let's make a switch. Let's, because the college thing didn't work. I did the construction thing for about 10 years. I even quit the one job where I worked with my dad because he retired. And then I worked 2 years on my own. And then I was like, I went and worked for some subcontractors, trying that route. And then I was like, it's still the same. It's always, pouring the concrete, doing this and that. Yeah. I'm like,
the tasks don't change, right?
Right. So I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? Let's just do something way different. And then, at that time too, I was with a girl, and we were like together for 8 years. So we're kind of like married, but she left, and I'm sitting in this small town, of Litchfield. Like, okay, so I'm in this double wide home. I have no plan. I have to drive an hour to work every day. I'm like, you know what? My brother's in the Army, and he seems to like it.
Really? So it was kind of that same, after so much time, and maybe after a breakup, and you do that self-evaluation.
Right.
And this was, so you're talking 2004?
No, 2008. So I did.
2008. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, wow. I joined at 32, or I think I was 31. I was on the cusp of 31, 32. It was also quick and moving that I just remembered, and I was like, well, I think my family's mentioned it too. They're like, you should see a recruiter, and I was like, why not? I mean, what else you got going for you?
Well, I mean, I guess the good thing about, and forgive me if I misspeak here, the good thing about construction is you can go away, come back to it as many times as you want, right?
True. Yeah.
You don't really lose the skills.
Yeah, but I already I've had 2 surgeries, before I even joined, and they were hernias, and I'm like, well, maybe that should tell you something, that maybe your body's not going to hold up like you think it might.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of lower back stuff. That's a lot of lifting, right?
And all the people I worked with, they were like, this one guy, Hooker, he'd come up and he'd be like, well, he always called me Fritzy. I don't know. He couldn't get my name right? So he's like, Fritzy, you're going to end up like me. And he had 4 discs in his back that were not lumbar strains, but it's the other one, slip discs. So his hands were like, this guy's out here at like 60-some years old, can barely grab stuff, still trying to work.
Yeah. Well, you get locked into that, right? And you're good at it. You know the job. But it's kind of a young man's game, right?
It is, totally. And I thought, at 32, I'm like, well, let's see. I haven't slipped my back or any of that stuff yet. Let's give this army stuff a shot.
What did your brother, older brother?
Yeah.
And he, do you know what he did?
So he was, I think, a 15 Tango. He worked on the Chinooks. He was a Chinook maintenance guy.
Oh, wow. There
True
you go.
Cheap. So he flew with them, and he did 20 years. Like we're like I did the whole, I'm going to work with my dad thing. And then at 17, he was like, no, I'm doing the whole military thing.
Wow. So he did his 20s. Is he still working? Or?
Yeah. He works at the company I work at now. That's how. Or where Kim works too, also. So it's kind of interesting. But
switches flipped.
Yeah.
And just go down to the bank of recruiters that are sitting there, or how did that whole thing come about?
Well, it's kind of a blur, but I do remember I went down to the recruiters and.
Were you excited? That it was just like, hey, I'm going to try something.
I was excited, and I went in, and they're like, "Oh, you have a record," and they're like, "Oh, what's this? What's that?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, and they're like, "Okay."
No, wait. When you say you have a record, what do you mean you have a record?
Well, a charge on my record.
Okay.
Some a check fraud that wasn't even an incident, because I went to a store and I bought a Mountain Dew and a pack of cigarettes. And I had my checkbook, right? And I pull it out. And I'm like, oh, there's no checks. So me, just being in a rush, I run back in my car, there is a checkbook in here. I grabbed it.
Yeah.
And it was one of my old expired ones. And then the county up there, they were like, you were trying to do check fraud. You need to come to court. So then I was summoned to court and everything for $4.50. And I'm thinking, wow. I'm like, if you knew what I had in my account, I got probably about $6,000 sitting in my checking account. You think I was trying to do check fraud for a pack of cigarettes and that? But
that stayed on there for that's got to be a misdemeanor by that time, right?
Yeah, it was a misdemeanor. Yeah.
No,
so when they pull your file at the recruiting station, they're like, "Oh, misdemeanor,"
right?
And I was like, "Oh, okay. Is this going to hold me back?" And they're like, "Well, no, we can waiver it." And at the time when I was coming in, what got me at the recruiter thing was they were giving bonuses.
Yeah.
And it was $25,000. And I'm like,
wow.
I was like, $25,000 bonus. And then when I first came in, though, I'm like, you know how the recruiters are. I show up and I'm like, well, they didn't have me pick the MOS. First, I had to do the 1 mile, 1 minute push up.
Yeah, I remember that, to see if you are capable of anything. I remember doing it on the sidewalk outside of his office. Yeah.
We went to some road because he picked me up and we drove out to some road that was straight up,
my God.
in the country. And I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, like, haven't ran. I'm not a runner. Like I did track and stuff, in high school and football. Sure. But I'm like, I'm not a runner. I don't know if I can do this. And then so we do the 1 minute push-up, sit-ups, and I just crush them. He's like, okay. Of course. Yeah. He's like, all right, let's do the 1 mile. So I do the 1 mile run, and I think it was 7 minutes.
Okay. That's right in the ballpark. Yeah.
He was like, and at 32, because that's when they had the age classes. He's like, oh, you're good. He's like, there's one other thing we need to do. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, the ASVAB test.
Oh, the ASVAB. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. How'd that come out? How'd you do?
So I went in there and crushed it. Not as good as my brother. I think I had 91 or 92. And my brother, he had to be like, he had to be like the smart child. He's like, I think I had a 98 or something. But like, I'm like, whatever.
But your areas is what's important, right?
So the areas
and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I had like 140s, 130s.
Nice.
The line scores. But yet my GT was the lowest with the 115. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But
no, that doesn't make any sense. But oh well. Yeah.
But you figure out when you're in the Army, because like in the different spots I worked, I'm like, well, they pick certain questions out of each area.
Yeah.
To make that GT. And I'm like, well, that's probably why. But even 115 was like, he's like, you can do anything you want. So I show up at the recruiting station and I'm like, I can do anything I want. And they're like, okay, let's look at the MOSs. And they're like, here we go. 11 Bravo. Is that what you want?
11 Bravo. Hey, like, you scored really high. Let's put a weapon in your hand and some boots on your feet.
They're like, and then they brought up They brought up field artillery. They're like, well, we got field artillery too.
Yep. That was always a close.
They were trying to fill those slots.
Yes, they were.
I was like, well, the only way I'm going to join is if you got something that goes along the lines of music. Because I love playing guitar and I've played guitar for like almost my whole life. And I'm like, if something along, and they're like, well, so we were looking and they're like, we got this visual information operator maintainer. I don't even know what it is. That's what the lady said.
Really? She said that?
Yeah.
Great.
Nobody's heard of a 25 Romeo. And they're like, I don't even know what that is. I'll take that one. And she's like, oh, look, it comes with a bonus of 25 grand too.
Beautiful. Perfect.
And I was like, yeah, I'll sign up for that.
Did you do the contract with a guaranteed job on it?
Yeah. Yep.
And did you go in or did you delay entry?
So I was like, I'm so ready to go. I'll go as soon as possible. And they're like, all right, 2 weeks.
Oh, shit. Really?
Yep. They're like 2 weeks. And I'm thinking, I signed all this and did this. And I'm thinking, wait, I have a house and all this other stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You got a lot of affairs to take care of.
Yeah. But, my family, they stepped in and they're like, we got it. We'll sell it. And then in that 2 weeks, me and my dad went and roofed the shingles. We re-roofed the house and we not decorated, but, cleaned it up. Made it look presentable. And so, wow. And I was like, I'm going to be so rich. Because I was used to getting $1,000 a week, right, from construction. I'm like, making the money.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, you know how that goes when you join the Army.
Well, they prorated that bonus, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, but you don't get it until after AIT.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Crush your hopes.
Yep, so you got to complete. And then I'm like, what's my rank going to be? And they're like, E1.
Oh, they didn't give you nothing for nothing, huh?
No. And I even had college and stuff, but typical. I mean, things get bypassed. I see now when I look back, like, the recruiter, he's doing his job. He's got to get people in, and it's a lot of paperwork. And I'm not saying they rushed it, but that paperwork when they're doing it, I remember it was just like, sign this. Yeah. You're like, you're trying to read it. You're like, no, just sign it. You don't have to worry about it.
Especially since you were older, you're trying to read it. The young guys like okay, 25,000, okay,
And then when you're at basic, because that's what he did. He mentioned that to me too, because I'm like, I have 32 credit hours, at college, and he's like, yeah, they'll take care of it in basic. Don't worry.
Oh, he told you something similar too.
Yes, he did. Because
I
wanted that E2 at least, or maybe E3 because I had enough.
E3, absolutely, you should have been an E3. Oh, so he rooked you at the recruiting station.
They can tell when you walk in there too. You come in there and you're like, this guy wants to sign up because he wants to get away from something. We got him.
Well, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Did you go to MEPS?
Yep. I went to MEPS, did that whole.
Where was MEPS? Was it in Litchfield?
Nope, it was in Minneapolis. So I rode with the recruiter in his car. We drove up there.
He drove you. Okay, you didn't have to be put on a bus or a van with some other guys.
Nah, it's such a small town, for like where my recruiter guy was. That it was just me and no one else. So me and the recruiter.
Okay.
And I was in awe. I'm not gonna lie, I was struck in awe because he was like, I'm an 18. What was he? 18 Delta. So I think he was the medic for Special Forces. And I'm like, ooh, you're Special Forces. He's like, I'm just doing this, I'm like, and I was buying everything he said. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah.
And then you go through your career, and you go, these guys usually become recruiters because they're running from something else.
Exactly. So this guy might have been a Special Forces, but he maybe saw some stuff or and messed him up. He's like, I'm doing recruiter.
Yeah, or they're like, hey, you need to go find another career field. And they're like, I'll be a recruiter.
Yep.
Did you spend a night?
Yep. No, not for the MEPS one. The MEPS one, I just went up there. This was like the, pee in the cup, do the duck walk.
Right.
Go in, have the doctor be like, drop your pants and stuff. And he's like, I'm tired. We're not going to check for anything today. You're good to go. I'm like,
did you have med records prior to that from all the construction?
Nope. So
okay.
Everything was a clean slate basically for me. They asked, I didn't really have any medical things or nothing. And it was a pretty easy process, and then after you do the clinical stuff, I did the MOS picking, and then he drove me back home. He's like, see you in 2 weeks. And then I didn't hear nothing from him until.
Oh, really?
Yeah, until the day of, and I show up there, and I'm like, one little backpack with clothes and stuff, and that's when I stayed the night because I got there a day early. They probably do that on purpose, so that way, you
went back up to the MEP station?
Yeah, that's where I shipped out of. Yeah.
Okay. Put you on a bus, or they put you on a plane?
So I got flown. So they got us on. Well, we got there. And we bussed to the airport, and then we flew to Fort Jackson. And then I remember that because, I remember the night before I couldn't sleep because I'm like, what did I sign up for? That's what I was thinking. Well, I guess this is happening now.
Yeah, you're in the pool now. You better start swimming, I guess, right?
Yeah, my roommate, he was just up partying, drinking and stuff. I'm like,
really? Really?
And then he laughed. I'm just sitting over there like, silence in the room. I'm like, and then I fell asleep, of course, woke up the next day, and then it was all, hurry up here, get on this bus, go over to the airport, fly to Jackson.
Obviously you're older, right? You're 31. Yeah. So you kind of knew this was coming, but did your brother give you any heads up or anything like that?
No, he didn't give me any advice. He was like, since I was older, I was more like mature in the fact that, when people yell at me, I was just like,
sure,
and I did have a temper, but it wasn't as bad when I was in my 30s versus like when I was 18. If I would have went, there'd have been no way because I'd have told everyone to go F themselves. So I'd have been like, F you and F you and F you. I'm gonna throw down with you.
Anybody as old as you, or were you just the grandpa of the whole platoon?
No. So once we got through the little reception thing and got to our bay, there was another guy. He was 42. I believe he was right at the max. Yeah.
I thought it was 35. It used to be 35.
Right,
then,
but when I came, they upped it. Right.
And I remember after 9/11, and then during those 2000s, they were like, we're taking, and I don't remember what the upper limit was.
Obviously, I can't remember if it was 41 or 42. Yeah, it was one of those two.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and he was in there. So we were the old guys.
Okay.
It was fun because he was a biker. Like I talked to him. I don't remember his name. But he was like an endurance biker and did all this endurance biking stuff.
He was in shape.
Yeah, right? So he was a runner too. And it was interesting because, like just being in that bay with all those kids was like, I was like, oh my. Yeah. Yeah. So then one of them was like, hey, old man. I'm like, you talking to me? He's like, yeah, you old man. Because at night we would have wrestling matches.
Oh, and,
like they would go and wrestle on the you remember in the middle of the drill pad where you had to wax it, and well, that was the wrestling match was right in the center.
Okay.
So this guy, he's probably 4 times my size.
Oh, he was. He's a big guy.
Yeah, he's a big boy, and he was all talking like, "You're old and you can't." And I'm like, "Fine, you want to go? Let's go." So I went out there. It was about 30 seconds, and I flipped him and put him in a headlock.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then after that, nobody, they didn't challenge me. They're like, "No, just let the old guy be." I was like, okay. Basic's fun.
What part of the year did you go to Fort Jackson?
Winter. So I got
Of course, right?
Yeah, so I got the winter one right before Christmas, and I think basic at the time was 10 weeks, or is it 10 or 13 weeks? I think it's 13 weeks. But when we got there, they're like, "We're going to rush your class." So I ended up only getting, I think it was like 8.5 weeks. It was like it was a very shortened basic, which we all thought was great because we're like, yeah, but then the drills were like, "You're going to be in red phase the whole time."
Oh, jeez, of course.
So we never got to, to like, was it red, blue, white or something?
Yeah, you never got to leave base or anything like that?
No, we just stayed in the initial state, and we were bad too. So it was
What do you mean you were bad?
Anything and everything we could do. Like they would come up, they'd find food in the barracks.
Oh, God.
We had people that would smell it. Like our drill sergeant Espinoza. He was our platoon guy, right? Or our drill sergeant. And he'd be like, we'd mess up in the barracks and he'd be like, "We're going to the sand." Or what do you call it?
Geez.
The desert or sandbox? I think it was to the sandbox. That's what it was.
The sandbox.
Going to the sandbox. Yeah. And then he'd take us out back and we'd low crawl in the sand pit at the head of Jackson.
Yeah.
We'd go low crawl, be on our backs, and we'd just do that for like hours.
Was it sand or was it sawdust?
It was sand.
Okay.
So you get sand up and everything, and it was like,
oh, it's so
he
uncomfortable.
loved that. That was his favorite too. We'd go to the chow line, and I remember being in the chow line, and you'd have to go up and you'd have to know your phonetic alphabet.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, C, and you'd be like, Charlie, and then you'd have to answer him right away because if he'd be like F, and you're like, he's like, "Back of the line."
Oh, he put you in the back. You had to try again.
Yeah. And it wasn't just our platoon. So it wasn't our platoon. It was like 4 other platoons, right?
Yeah.
So back of the line, you went a ways back, and he'd just sit there and do that as we're coming up. And I was like, "Please give me something easy. Give me something easy." He'd be like X, and I was like, "X-ray." He's like, "Go ahead." And the next person.
That's crazy. It was fun. Those stories are fun now. They're a pain in the ass as you're going through them. Yeah,
that 8 weeks, or I think it was 8 or 10 we did, because they only trimmed off a bit. It was so slammed too, because like I shoot rifle and all that all the time. But when we went for our range, they were like, somebody came up with a smart idea and said, "You know what? Let's combine the ruck march, the 12 mile with the range." Yeah. So yeah, we had the ruck out there with our rucks and stuff, and everyone's like, and then we get there and they're like, "Now you're going to shoot."
God,
we only had 1 day to shoot. We're usually at 3 days. Yeah, it was I don't remember if I qualified or not, because they didn't explain the sight picture thing to me. Now, of course, it's like after being in, I'm like, oh, I mastered it. Now I can shoot expert all the time. But that was it was quite the experience.
So when did you get out of basic? Was it Christmas time or after Christmas?
Yeah. So at Christmas time, my parents were able to come pick me up.
Okay.
And I was like, I could have flew back, but they wanted to come see my graduation. I think they were proud because they're like, "Hey, he's doing something with his life. He's not just being an alcoholic and sitting around." And I get it. I was working, but I'm doing something.
Even if you're older, it's still an accomplishment. I mean, for never having done something like that in your life, it's you gotta take your hat off. So.
And now when I look back at it, I'm like, yeah, pretty much everybody gets, they get a go with basic unless you're just a tool or something. I thought for sure I'd have broke or something, like, something will fall apart, but no. So like when I went to AIT, like I'm like, okay, I'm a signal guy. So it's signal. I'm a 25 series. I'm like,
signal
all
right.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, going to Gordon. Well, I didn't know Gordon was really home on the signal. Yeah. But no, we're a detachment out at Fort Meade. So when I got my orders, right, the drill sergeant's like, "I got orders for not Sergeant Horwath, but Private Horwath. You're 25. I don't even know what a 25 Romeo is." Nobody ever knew that MOS ever.
Right.
And then,
right.
So I get my orders and I'm like, oh, it says report here, at Fort Meade.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So, of course my leave's done. I get ready to go. I fly out there. I get to the airport and I'm like, it's late at night. I think it was about 11 o'clock, 11:30. I'm like, where do I go? I'm like, where do I go? And I'm in uniform, of course, which I don't know why, but because they say report in uniform. And I'm like, oh, there's a number. So I call this number and they're like, yeah, it's here. Here's the address. And they give me the address. And I'm like, okay. So I get in a cab and just drive over there. Cab takes me there. I get out. It's all dark. I'm like, what is this? I find this door and I'm like, wait. And I see all these people coming out because it was I think I arrived on a Saturday. And they're all like carrying beers and bottles of vodka. And they're just
whoa,
like, I'm like,
really?
I'm like, what the? And I come up and I walk in the front door and they're like, oh, you're a new guy? The guy looks at me and goes, so what's your MOS? And I'm like,
oh, no, here we go.
Romeo? And he's like, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm like, because we're such a small MOS, but I guess the guy I met at the time, he was the platoon sergeant and he was just happy that they had more Romeos because
awesome.
It's the whole pride of being of your MOS thing there. Cause I think there's 4 different MOSs that go there. They got the 46 series, they got the 25 Mike, 25 Victor, and then the 25 Romeo.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which is, so they were all happy because the Victors were our enemies. They were the combat cameras. You had the Mikes, they were the graphic to design, and then 46 series with public affairs.
Yeah.
And then, of course, 25 Romeo. But it was interesting. I got there. I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. It's a long school, too. The one I did is 27 weeks.
27 weeks for AIT. Wow.
Yeah. By the time I left, I was E3. I remember that first check, too, because when I was there, I didn't really care about my checks in basic because, you just ate, slept, did what they said. And go out
well, they didn't let you go anywhere, so you can go off base and everything. So.
And then
off post. You get out of Meade, right?
Yeah, but before I left Meade, I actually had some good accomplishments where, I was a student first sergeant, distinguished undergraduate. The old guy, high PT. I had one of the high PT records.
Really? Well done, sir. Well done.
Yeah. I was pretty proud of myself. And then I was like, this is how you know when some platoon sergeants are lazy, because the new guy came in and I'm like, well, he's like, good job. Here's your coin. And then the other one, platoon sergeant, he is now a sergeant major Bray, but he was like, you're not going to get an award? I was like, what are awards?
Yeah, right.
I was like, I'm not writing that. Lazy.
Did you ever 300 the PT test?
Yep.
No kidding.
So, yeah, there I only got 290. I think I was 298, so I missed it in AIT. But once
did they still have
the
extended scale?
No, they did away with it. But when I was in Afghanistan, I got 347, and I wasn't even trying. I wasn't even trying. I just went out and did it, and I'm like, because it was for my board promotion for E6.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, let's try and get a good score. And the funny thing about that is when I was running on Bagram, I was running on the strip on Bagram, Afghanistan, and I'm like, I don't know where so we started, and I took off, and I'm like, I knew where the turnaround point was. So I ran. It was me and another dude, and I was racing him. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to destroy this dude because he was talking a whole bunch of smack how fast he was. And
really?
Yeah, I took off, and I just burned him. And then I turn around because there's somebody down there, and then I'm coming back. I'm like, I don't know where the end is because it all looks the same on Bagram. So
it's just one long look, right?
So I just started sprinting, right? I'm like, yeah, I'll start sprinting. Yeah, here it is. That's not it. I'm like,
shit.
I did it 3 times where I kept thinking it was the end.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I see Sergeant Reed at the end. I'm like, there he is. And then I sprinted and got across. I was like, what's my time? Did I beat the 13-minute? And he's like, yeah, you beat it. I was 12:10. I was like,
God bless, man. So you were just basically doing like fartleks. You were like sprinting, going down, sprinting. So you get out of Meade in June, July, somewhere around there?
It was 27. Yeah, so it was June timeframe. Yeah.
And that's 2008 at that point, or is it 2009?
Yeah, 2008 still. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I remember when I was at AIT, because towards the end of your, training, your individual training, you're like, you get your orders. And I'm an E2.
Right.
Sanders, he's an E2. So what's weird about this guy, Sanders, is in basic, like we were in the same room.
Okay.
And we were the same MOS. And then we went to AIT. And I was like, well, that's cool. I mean, it's somebody actually I know.
Yeah.
So we're there and we get our orders. And of course, there's only 8 in our classroom because Romeos are small courses.
Okay.
And the one guy, he's like, I got Korea. The other guy, Kim, he's like, I got Hawaii.
Oh.
And then I look over at Veer Hein and he's like, I got Italy. I'm like, geez, what am I going to get?
God.
And then Knight, he's like, I got Korea. And I'm like, sweet, let's see it. So then they give me and Sanders, they're like, brag. We were like, really? And then everyone's like, oh, you're going to hate Fort Bragg. You're going to hate it.
Really?
But as it turns out, that was probably one of the best posts, to learn military.
Well, yeah, geez, for as much as they got there.
Yeah.
Home of
the Airborne.
101st is there, right?
What? 82nd.
82nd. Sorry. I always get those mixed up.
How dare you say the 101st?
Oh, 101st is a Campbell. Right.
Yeah.
Bragg is a All-American. The 82nd.
Yeah, we're Airborne. And I think 101 is, they're Airborne too, but I think, wasn't Campbell more air assault? I don't remember.
I think so. The Dope on the Rope was, that was one of the schools you could go to, was at Campbell. Did you ever go Airborne?
Yep, I went Airborne.
No kidding. Did you really? Congrats, man. So did I.
Let me tell you, when you show up to Fort Bragg, and I got there, as an E2. I think I might have been I don't remember if I was E2 or E3 when I showed. I think E2. I got E3 right away, and then But I was there, and it was like the first 2 weeks. And Sergeant Major, you talk to him, and he's like, "Going Airborne, right? Going Airborne, Airborne, Airborne." That's all you heard everywhere. Went away, which was in basic, and then went to Airborne for everything. Yeah,
Airborne for Sergeant Airborne.
So I was like, you know what? Why not? Let's go jump out of some planes or fall out of a good aircraft.
Which tactically makes perfect sense, because who wouldn't need a visual information MOS to be airborne?
Exactly, right? So I could get down there and fix your stuff.
So you could jump in with the special ops guys and set up their overhead projector.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was fun, though. I went to airborne school right away. They didn't start the bus yet when I got there.
What do you mean the bus?
Well, they would bus them down to Georgia. They were like Fort Benning.
Oh, yeah.
And when I got there, they were like, no, it's just you and this other guy, and we'll just get you tickets. So they bought me a plane ticket. So I got to fly down to Fort Benning. So that was fun. But airborne school was great. It was 3 weeks. It was not too bad. I rolled my ankle, kind of got me mad.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, not on a jump, but on a running. And I had my...
Oh, no. Did you really?
Yeah, military, because they make you run in your boots.
I know. I remember. Yeah.
Oh, you're airborne?
Yeah. I went in 87.
Oh, nice.
And that's
all that stuff.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was so.
Did they have the tower working when you were there?
Oh yeah, the Ungawa towers.
Yeah, that one tower was like supposed to simulate not the 30-foot tower, but it was the
250.
Yeah.
I remember those.
So when they brought us out there before we did our first jump, and they're like, what was it? They're like, if this happens to you airborne, just kick your leg. And they dropped like the dummy that was up there.
Oh, yeah.
And he adds the cigarette roll, and then it breaks, and they're like, oh, no. And we're all watching this guy fall, and we're like, boom. It's like, right. Yeah, and you're like, that's not what you're supposed to do.
They did that. It got your attention. I was like, Jesus.
I know, right? Like, this is serious. I remember I did the same thing on my first jump where I came and I somehow landed on my back because I wasn't,
Yeah.
I did something wrong, but it was like the windrow of sand. They had like the sand that was in windrows. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember I bruised it, turned all black. I'm like, I'm just going to chalk this one up and keep doing it.
I'm muscling through this thing. Because there's so much, just in that 3 weeks.
Yeah.
There's so much that happens in that 3 crazy weeks. And then you jump and it's thrilling. It's just unbelievable.
Do you remember the swing load trainer where they swing you back and forth and then they're like, fall?
Yeah. And you had to figure out how to do your PLF. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a cadet in there. He was a pretty cool guy, but he was doing it and they're like, fall. All of a sudden he, boom, hits the ground, right?
Uh-huh.
And we're like staring at him. He's kind of slow to get up.
Oh.
He stands up and he's like, he looks at the black. He's like, I don't feel that good. And we're looking at him and his left shoulder was hanging like, he broke his collarbone.
Oh,
it dropped like 6 inches. And he's like, I don't think I'm all right. we're sitting there watching him like, no, definitely not.
That makes everybody kind of cringe, right? You're like, oh God.
It's like, wow, things can happen.
Okay. Anyway, so you get your wings. Very cool.
Got the wings. Go back to Bragg.
You reported. You remember what your first unit was?
Yeah, PSYOPs. It was.
Well, I'm sorry. Say that again.
PSYOPs.
Oh, you were assigned to PSYOPs?
Yeah, because we're the VI guys for the PSYOPers.
Wow.
And I was in the EMS electronics maintenance section, and I think we were like fourth PSYOPs is what it went by. Now it's like MISO, and then I think it went back to PSYOPs. But
okay. Fourth PSYOPs, like battalion or something. I
was 3rd Battalion. That's what I was. 4th PSYOPs was our group or higher headquarters, and then I was 3rd Battalion. Yep, 3rd Battalion HSC EMS section. That's how it went. It was that was one of the best shops to be in too when you were at Bragg, because the other ones, like, have you been to Bragg?
I went for a 1-week TDY, so I never really saw much of it, but I have. But...
Yeah, we were over by where all the satellites were. There's like a whole bunch of satellite
we didn't go over there. I was doing artillery stuff, so I wasn't even close to that.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, Bragg was a good time. I mean, that's where you see a lot of goofy stuff where, soldiers do dumb things and buy vehicles for like 25% interest rates. And they're like, I got this truck, though. I got it. It's a cheap deal. There's got one guy, he came in our shop. So basically from my time from E3 to E4, E5 was really quick.
Yeah.
Because once I got E4, I got a waiver to E4, and then I was E4, and then I picked up, I think I was in the Army at that time, only like 2 years, and then by 3 years I was E5.
Oh, so
4 years.
Kind of in essence, they kind of, in a way, did give you credit for that college. Well, because you don't usually get promoted up that fast to E5.
No, but I was just outstanding. Like, so me and the other cats in our section. Like,
yeah, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you're kicking ass. Yeah,
we didn't get it. We didn't get it with the college stuff, but no, it was
But I mean, if you had stepped in based on your college and you, first day in active duty, and you're an E4.
No, exactly. That would have been nice.
It kind of equivalated out the same way, I suppose.
Yeah, I had to work my butt off, but it paid off in the end.
Right. Where'd you go to PLDC?
Well, for us it was WLC, but Warriors.
Wait, what? Oh, it's not Platoon Leader Development Course, or
no? They changed it. They put it to Warrior Leader Course.
Oh,
but I went on Bragg at Camp Swampy. That was fun. And I was like, why did
in the summer, I suppose.
Yeah, and I'm like, why do they call it that? And then, you get down there, it makes sense because it's all swamp water and just humid, and that was a fun time though, because they call everybody sergeant, and I meet a lot of the 82nd folk that I hate because I don't really hate them. It's just they're really by the book. I mean,
are they really?
Yeah, the DAPAM, they're like, we need that memorized.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, okay. Did you get that sense of if you weren't 82nd, you weren't the upper crust of Fort Bragg? Did you get any feeling like that?
Well, we kind of did. Like, they would knock the PSYOPers, but then what the PSYOPers always use, they're like, we're part of special. We're almost special forces. Like, they always kept thinking they were, because that's who they attached with, and that's who they would support and deploy. But we were like our own little entity. Like, 82nd was on the other side, because 82nd's by Long Street and all that stuff over there, and we're by Riley. we were like so sectioned off. Like we were like more headquarters than on the grunt side.
Okay, that makes sense. But
if we went down there to go use their defect, it was funny because a few of my friends, they just walk across the grass, and then some sergeant major come out, from the AC, get off my grass! He just started going crazy. Whatever, and they took off running, and this sergeant major just yelling. He's like, "He'll never find me."
And I bet after every one of those counters, you're like, "I'm glad I'm not the fucking 82nd guys." Jesus,
I know.
Take themselves too seriously.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I granted, I get it, and they like to follow all their rules.
Yeah, sure.
PSYOPers were like, they adopted the whole SF mentality. Like, yeah, man, let's grow our hair, and I never really did. I was kind of still stuck on, hey, I'm here to do a job, learn, because I was starting to like the military at this time because I'm like, yeah, man,
good,
it's pretty cool. I'm a sergeant, moving around, and then before I became E5 though. When I was in E4, like right when I got there, it was, I think I was only there 6 months. And then they're like, we have a deployment. And I'm like, oh, I want to go. And that's when I went to Iraq. And that was fun.
Did you go as an E4 then?
Yep. Went as an E4, got promoted downrange because they were like, you need to go to a board. So they sent me to the board, passed that board. That's when they still had the point system. And
okay.
Everybody gave me top points except my platoon sergeant, which docked me too, just because. I was like, whatever.
Nobody can be perfect, right? Nobody can be perfect. You get E5 in theater. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was kind of a bonus. And then, just being in theater, my first one was Iraq.
Yeah.
And I remember I got there, and then on the plane, they were like, so we were the PSYOPers, so they gave us some of the cool gear. Like we get the cool guy stuff, like the backpacks and.
Oh, really?
The plate. No, I didn't have plate carrier this one. I got that in Afghanistan. But so anyways, we're getting on the plane to go. We did all our pre-deployment stuff, all the training. And they're like, here, you can have some of these sleeping pills. And I'm like,
sleeping?
I've never tried Ambien, whatever. So I have it on the plane. I'm like, well, how many are we supposed to eat? And they're like, well, you take one, and if it doesn't work, you take another. So I'm sitting on the plane, and I'm like, well, 1 didn't work, 2 didn't work, 3 didn't work. Yeah, so I ate 4 of them, and then I think I had 2 more, and then I'm like, well, these things don't even work, and they only give you 10. But I'm like, I'm not taking all 10. That's just craziness. Right. So I had 6 pills, and the guy next to me, I'm like, yeah, that's not working. He's like, yeah, no. So I'm like, yeah, we'll take more. That's what I did. So he's taking more, and then all of a sudden we're sitting there, and I'm like, because we're on a commercial plane that we flew. We didn't fly.
You did? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't take C-17. And all of a sudden, that's when it kicked in. And I'm like, I just remember it where I'm like, all dizzy. And then this guy's like, So he pukes, right? It goes on my leg and stuff. And I'm looking at him. I just go, and I just fall asleep.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I just went out. But
did you guys fly straight to theater, or did you stop in Italy, or? So
we stopped in Ireland. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Ireland. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So we stopped in Ireland, and they, they're like, everyone get out of there. And so I'm like, I'm all on these pills, right? So I wake up, I'm like, oh, what? I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, we got in 8 hours so they can fuel the plane and stuff, but everyone has to leave the plane so they can fuel it. So we're leaving. We go in the terminal, and I'm like, I need a coffee. So I walk up to the thing, and I'm like, can I get a coffee? And they're like, yeah, what would you like? Would you like an Irish coffee? I'm like, sure.
Oh, nice.
And my first sergeant sitting right next to me, he's like, you can't have that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, because I think Irish coffee, they put alcohol in it. Because that's Irish
whiskey, right?
Yeah, he's like, can't have that. I was so bummed. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, you should have said, yeah, why not? You pop me up on Ambien. This whiskey's
I know, right? That was a bad move with the Ambien because a lot of people were saving it. Because I remember when we were in theater, they're all like, let's have an Ambien party. So they're all sitting there eating them all and stuff.
How long did you go over there?
So we were there 7 months. I think that was a 7-month tour. It was pretty fun because as soon as I hit the ground, I met the other maintenance guys, and they're like, yeah, we got our own vehicle and stuff. Nice. We were on Baghdad, so we were in the corner.
Take me through your thought process there. Did it, was it kind of awestruck at first? You're like, holy shit, I'm in Baghdad.
Oh, yeah. When I first got there, because when we landed, or when I got to Baghdad, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. What, we have shoes to live in? And now it's like, there is a lot of sand. And then, at first it was like, it seemed like not real. You know what I mean? You're like, did they just fly us to a sandbox in the desert and we're here? And
I'm with you. Yeah, that makes sense. But what struck you? What was the first big, like, oh, I'm really over here kind of moment?
Once we got in the truck, because we had our own truck. Well, first, that first night we settled in, got our shoes, and I'm like, oh, you have a roommate. I'm like, oh, that's great. Not really, but I was hoping I'd have my own shoe, but who knows? Well, whatever. But anyways, we get in the truck the next day and we're driving the thing, but they drive me up to the palace, and that's when it like really set in because, I'm looking around, I see the palm trees, and I'm like, well, still, is this really Iraq? I mean, because it looks like, Saddam's palace is what we were close to. And, I'm like,
that's where you guys were set up at? It was not his palace, but in some of those more palatial buildings?
Yeah, so that's where our headquarters was kind of at. It wasn't the one that was, surrounded by water, but it was the one that was
right
off in the corner. Because we actually fell. When I went out there, I went to support a guard unit, or what were they? They were like a tactical guard unit that was PSYOPs.
Okay.
So we supported the guard element out there. And then what I ended up doing down the road is actually starting to support like 18th Airborne 18th Airborne. I think they were there. And then I worked for the ISAF. And then I started, embedding because my boss, it was just me and another guy. We ran maintenance for like 36 locations.
Oh, God.
And he couldn't leave because I didn't want him to go on a mission. Like somebody has to stay back and do the stuff. So I just flew all the time.
God, that's a lot of equipment that you guys are responsible for maintaining. And
I got there and only 4 of them worked out of the PSYOP. Yeah, so their printing capabilities were pretty like messed up. But by the time I left, I had every one of them working. Not to say like the first crew that was there before me, Ivy and I can't remember. Oh, wow. That was Afghanistan. I keep mixing them, but Ivy was still there. It's funny because this guy, Ivy, I met him twice, right? Like, I met him in Iraq and I met him in Afghanistan. Of course, he was from my shop, but I kept replacing him. And this guy was he's like, I got numbers for chicks. Look, here you go. He's like, I got these girls lined up. I'm like,
in country?
Yeah. So I'm like, so what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm tagging this girl over here. She's part of the guard, but trust me, you just hit her up. She'll come right over to your chew. And I'm like, I was thinking in my head, like, yeah. So every location I went, they were like, he had a chick lined up. And I'm like, dude, and every time he went to fix something, his thing was like, oh, yeah, it's broke.
See you later.
Yeah. He's like, see you later. I just came, to check out this chick. And I'm like, okay, I get you. Whatever.
Well,
dude.
I remember in Qatar, and in between all the, I can't remember what they called them, but basically in between where we were staying, right? There was long rows of the rooms, and then in between each one of those had the air raid shelters, right? And then you would have another billet, and they would say, hey, don't go in those air raid shelters. And like, well, what do you mean don't go in? It was like, they're full of condoms. They're full of all sorts of stuff that you don't want because the cops are getting around. And I was like, the cops? And I'm like, yeah, the cops are notorious around here. I was like, holy shit, what is going on over here?
That's all it was, too. And those bomb shelters, like, I remember the first time I got an air raid.
Yeah.
Because we were there, and I think they had the C-RAM on top, but you hear the C-RAM, it's like going off crazy. You're like, oh, yeah, I get them. And all of a sudden you hear boom. You're like, well, wait, it missed it. But the first air raid I had when it went off this time, it's going off and stuff, and I'm like, I take off running to a shelter, right?
Sure.
Like, yeah, I'm in here. I'm safe. And then it wasn't too long after, like in Iraq, where I think when one of the shelters the motor landed on the one end and just blew through and killed everyone.
Oh, jeez.
I remember towards like the end of it because I was even there when they killed bin Laden.
Oh, you were? Wow.
Yeah. So when we tagged him, I was in Basra. I was way down south. And I was supposed to fly out that day. And, the news comes across. No, there was no flying because they just mortared for the whole day. I think we had.
Oh, they did. Oh, really?
Yeah.
The retaliation kind of
nonstop.
thing.
Yeah. And it was like blowing up. The chopper I was supposed to do, it blew a hole in front of it and blew up the runway. And I'm like, I guess I'm stuck here for a while. But it's funny how you get so desensitized to like if the sirens go off, I'm like, well, if it's going to hit me, it's going to hit me. I mean,
kind of. Yeah, right. I mean, it's
well, I'm not looking for it, but
No, and you're not, but you have to, it seems like you kind of get that, you have to get that mindset to just kind of carry on.
Yep. I would just stay in my tube.
If you're terrified every time that alarm goes off, you'll be like, you're not going to get anything done.
No. And then we had a rocket came. So I was getting ready to go to the gym, and I got out of my chew and I started walking. It's at night, and I remember this because I'm walking. I'm going to the gym. I'm like, oh, man, you forgot your headphones. I got to go all the way back. So I started walking all the way back. I get to my chew, and then that's when the sirens go off, and the rocket comes right over my chew, like, whoa, and hits the gym.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I was like, it blew a hole in the side of the gym. And I remember I was like, I went out and I'm
faithful.
Like, maybe that was God telling me to go back and get your headphones. So
yeah. Wow.
There's a guy in there.
Wow.
He fell off the tread machine and he tried to get a Purple Heart because he said the rocket scared him.
I hate that. Right?
Yeah.
I get it, dude, but come on, man.
Yeah, I could go for hours on Iraq. That was a blast.
Was it really?
Oh yeah. It was,
give me a couple. What's your big accomplishments? What are you most proud of coming out of Iraq? So
when I was in Iraq, I guess my accomplishments, one was fixing all the PSYOP machines, went around and fixed them, and then I started working with the SF guys to do some of their equipment. Yeah. And then got recognized there. And then my name got so big when I was there.
Really?
Because I'd work on anything. I was like, well, let me take a look at it. Maybe I can fix it.
Yeah.
That two guys in suits came to this is funny. They came, oh no, that's Afghanistan. But so in Iraq, the 18th or 82nd needed some stuff fixed. So they heard about this guy, Horwath, and they were like, hey, Sergeant Horwath, can you come? And I'm like, well, if my command approves it. And they're like, yeah. So I went down there, fixed their stuff. I don't remember exactly what I had to do with them. I think it was some VI stuff, but I got it all up and working. And
can you say exactly what that equipment is without?
No, not really.
30 issues. Okay, fair enough.
No. That's why sometimes I skate around stuff.
No, and that's fine. And that's I sense that, but for those who are listening, they're probably like, "What the hell stuff is he talking about?"
Yeah,
and that's fair. If you can't say it, that's cool. But you were able to fix it.
Yeah, so I got that fixed. They wrote me up in AAM for that, and then
oh, nice. The
nice accomplishment would be getting promoted to E5, and then
where'd you do it? Where'd you do your promotion at? Did you have a choice, or did you just do it on the common ground?
I just did it at the one headquarters by his palace. Okay. It was where his one palace, not his main one, Saddam's, but he had like his home or something. It was like to the side. He had a big.
But you have some pictures of that in the background, or at least in the foreground, right?
I don't remember if I got. No, somebody. This was awesome. Somebody took pictures of all my stuff, and I never got them from him. I asked them to send them like multiple times. I remember, and then just never got them. I'm like, whatever, then.
That sucks.
Yeah, I was like at that time. Though I'm like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And now I look at it, I'm like, it would have been nice.
Yeah, look at this. Look, kids, I got promoted in front of a tyrant's palace with the gold toilet.
Yeah, we went in there, but the toilet was gone.
Oh,
that's the one we went in. Yeah, they took they took all the gold stuff out when we were there. I'm like, I wonder why.
Shocking.
Because I think 2 years prior to me even getting the brag, one of our teams was the team that got caught. They were bringing back the ISUs or like the box crates, and they had the walls lined with AK-47s, the gold ones.
Oh yeah,
yeah, they got caught. I bet you they're still sitting at Leavenworth too.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, right.
From Bragg, the EMS shop. So that was great. And then just jumping back, but like when I was at Bragg too, I got there and they're like, "You're not gonna like kill your wife?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not married." And they're like, "Oh, okay." Because I guess right before I got there was another guy that hired a private to kill his wife, and they split the insurance money. I'm like, man, You can't make this stuff up. You come back a little
brag. Well, you got that much special operator. You got that much testosterone going with those guys. Who knows?
It's true. Like even I got to train with like Delta guys, so that was fun.
Oh, you saw some real Delta guys. Those are so rare. They're like unicorns, man.
Yeah,
nobody
and
these guys.
I would tell you what we did, but I can't because they make you sign that NDA stuff.
Right. How were they one-on-one?
Like, what do you mean?
I mean, were they personable? Were they assholes? Were they kind of
when they're training? When they're training, they are just mission focused. Like you can't even like one guy. And let's see how I can phrase this. Well, yeah. So say talking to him, we were trying to talk to him.
Yeah.
This one guy, nope, not having it. Not during mission. It was all mission focused.
All business.
Yeah, and the look in their eye, they didn't care. They didn't want to hear it. They're here to do their one job, and that's what's going to happen.
Did you interact with them off mission, off duty?
Well, you wouldn't even know it because they're so like we'd be at the bar, like we'd go to the bars off of I can't even remember the main road. But anyways, we go to like some of the clubs and stuff out there, and you would meet, like I met some of the SF dudes, they would open up and tell you, yeah, I'm SF, man, you should do it. It's easy.
Now, when you say, you're talking Green Beret guys.
Yeah, they would open up, but like the other guys, you never knew. Just the way they kept their profile was just, like I've had some interactions, but I never even wanted to ask them, you know what I mean?
It seems like Delta's just the one step away from CIA guys. You know?
Or above, because sometimes they pick. Yeah, I know with like the Delta guys, they pick from SEALs, from everything, and they pull them in. They pull like some of those. Well, I think that's special missions, but you know how they do it. They just pick the best, and it's the best. Yeah, I had a guy in my shop try 6 times, couldn't get in.
They always play those Delta guys like they have so much disdain for anybody who's just regular Army. Oh, you're regular Army.
Oh no, yeah, I don't think so.
Like, I don't see those guys being like that in real life, though. You know, because we all came from the same basic. We all did a basic training somewhere, right?
I think they got a lot of stuff going on in their head, though. You know, from like a lot of things that they do. It's like even this one. I've talked to an instructor. He did Ranger, SF, and all that. And he's a really sociable guy because I met him out there, and I helped him. I was helping the SF guys build their cafeteria. And this is one of our FOBs, in Iraq. And I was with PSYOP guys, but I'm a maintenance guy. So I don't really consider myself PSYOPs. But the PSYOP guys are like, no, we have other stuff to do. So I'm working with all these FS dudes building it. And it was pretty cool because I actually got a picture with them.
Really?
And they usually don't do that with their green berets on.
Oh, nice. Yeah, they never wear the berets.
No, they won't. They were like, man, we hate these PSYOP guys. They come out. I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, they come here.
Oh, shit.
They think they're SF and they're not. And this guy was really cool. And I had a whim when I was there. Like, I wanted to go because these guys were like, yeah, you'd fit the type. You know, I was talking with a bunch of them. And
yeah.
You know, I was older and I'm like, yeah. And then deployment, get back. Another deployment pops up. And I'm like, man, I just made so many excuses. And I kind of kicked myself because I should have just tried.
Sound like physically you would have been fine. It sounds like mentally you were aligned to go there.
Right. That's what they were saying. And I was just, you know, my problem is I get caught up in work and I get caught up in this. And
yeah.
And next thing you know, it's like time flies by and you're like, oh, look, now I'm like in my 40s. Just like I submitted an OCS packet, but I had it built and I was ready to go. And my other buddy Freeman, he built one. And then there's an advanced course. Would you like to go? And I'm like, sure. So I go to the course and I come back and that's when I find out, oh, wait, now I'm too old.
35 was the cutoff, right?
Yeah. And I think I did it right when I turned 36 because I went to the school and I got back. And of course, Freeman, my buddy, he submitted. So he's down there at 82nd captain. I think he's major now, but
no kidding.
That'd have been a different role, you know?
Well, okay. So you get over there, you make E5, right?
Yep.
You come back to Bragg.
I come back to Bragg. So I'm there for like a month and then they have the advanced course. This is the same time I was building the OCS packet. Had it all complete, physical done, all that. Good to go. Getting ready to submit. they come up with the advanced course for my MOS. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Little find out the course is 5 months long.
What year are we talking about now?
Oh, so that's probably 12 or 12. 12 is when I got back. And then I think I'm right on the dates. And then I do the 6 months there, becomes 2013. I get done with that class, graduate, distinguished honor graduate. And it was a joint class.
Nice.
We had Air Force, Navy, Army.
Nice.
So anyways, I graduate that one, come back. They're like, oh, man, we're in trouble. I'm like, what happened? They're like, the team in Afghanistan got caught drinking. One of their own turned them in. I was like, oh, man.
Jesus. Did you know?
Like, we need to, they're like, we need to send them back because they're threatening to kill the other dude that turned them in.
Oh, my God. How big was the team? Like 3 guys?
Yeah, it was, no, this was a 4-man team they had.
Oh, 4-man team. Okay.
So they're like, we need somebody to go. And I'm like, at this time, I'm just E5. I'm looking around. The other E5, I won't say his name, but he popped out for marijuana. So we're like, well, he can't go. It's like, and his excuse was, oh, I smoked a cigarette and I didn't know what it was.
Oh, that's like the Major League Baseball excuse. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's not going to fly. And then who else was in the shop? Oh, we had Norris, but he had something going on. And then I'm like, I'll do it. So me and my new soldier, which I forgot his name. I'm really bad with names, I think.
Oh, that's okay.
I'll think of it eventually. But so we're going to go, and then we got another guy that's going to go. So it'd be a 3-man team. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we start doing the pre-deployment stuff, going through the cycle, do all the training, you knock that all out. And then we're like, all right, time for a PT test. You got to do a PT test before you go. So I do it. I'm good. My soldier, he does it. He's good. The other soldier that was a 94 Echo, he fails.
Oh, Jesus.
And the command's like, they can still send you, right, without it, with a failed PT. But they're like, we're not sending them. So me and my soldier go to Afghanistan. 2 people go to replace a 4-man team.
Oh, God.
Easy. So we get there. It's great. I meet the other guys. I meet the guy, I think his name was Tansy, but I don't know. It's something like that. They call him Pansy. I don't know. He was the one that ratted him out because the other 2 were gone already.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, they sent them back.
Yeah.
And, he's like, yeah, here's the shop. We do, I can disclose it. We do the radio in a box transmissions for the SOP messages that say, hey, bring your stuff here. We'll pay you. Really what they do is, they broadcast this message. People come in and then those people just disappear. They go to, interrogation or something.
Oh,
That's what I'm assuming because I imagine some got paid, but I don't know. And you know how PSYOPs is. You never quite know what they're doing.
Hey,
So anyway,
on a side note for the PSYOPs,
yeah.
Who are the guys with the speakers, the leaflets, all the ones who get all the press?
That's us. So I was maintaining their stuff, but they're the
okay.
Yeah, so yeah, they do the leaflet drops, they do the messages on the radio, on the TV. They come up with it and it's all kind of secret.
Yeah.
I guess it's a secret type deal. It's not that high level, but they try and persuade people to come in. So anyways, I'm there, get there. I'm like, this shop is a mess. So me and my soldier, we reorganize it. Short story quick is
You're
I started
E5,
going around.
you're E5 at this time, right?
Yeah, so I'm E5, and then we have 28 locations there that all have these transmitting sites. And I think within the first 3 months, we got them all operational. Everyone done.
God.
Yeah. And then I started doing some other work, and then that's when the 2 guys in the suit approached. They came on we were on Camp Montron. They came on, and I was just walking up there to go to the little bazaar that was there.
Wait, say again. Where were you at?
Camp Montron.
Okay.
So it's on Bagram. It's the SF compound.
All right.
And I just remember this because I'm walking, going out the gate to go on to Bagram and go to the MWR, or maybe it was the barbecue place because they had a barbecue spot. But I'm going. These guys walk up to me and they're like, They're like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Good." And they're like, "We're looking for a Sergeant Horwath." And I'm in civilians because that was the cool part. You got to wear some civilians.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, you are?" Well, I think he works up there in that building.
No, you didn't. Did you really?
I did, because these guys are in suits. I'm like, I don't know what they're coming here for.
Such spycraft. Look at you. Yeah. That's awesome.
I'm like, they're up in that building. So anyways, they go up to the building, talk to my major. And she calls me on my phone. She's like, "Can you come in?" So I come in. And then they had a proposition. They wanted me to go with their CIA team they wanted me to be their VI guy, visual information guy.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, I want to. And it was in Kabul. Okay. And my major was like, "Nope."
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, because they were like, she's like, "You're too much of an asset here. I can't let you go because."
Ah, that's true, because you're two guys replacing a
yeah, we're a two-man team, and I run the section back there and do all the stuff. And she's like, "No," because when they told her for security, they were going to have SF guys in place. So it'd be like a 5-man security detail, but they wanted to shoot training stuff. And I was like, man, that'd have been awesome. Yeah. That was probably my biggest highlight in Afghanistan, because basically it was just mission after mission, and it was fun. Quick.
When did you get back from Afghanistan?
8 months later.
Oh,
so that was it. That was 10 months. I think it was a 10-month. Yeah, it was a 10-month tour. So it was quite a long one. And I remember I got back to brag. Well, when I was downrange in Afghanistan, I re-enlisted to go to Hawaii. I wanted to go to Fort Shafter. And I was like, because they were like, you can pick brag for $60,000 with a bonus, 6 years, or you can pick Hawaii with a $3,500 bonus. And I'm like, that's a no-brainer. I'll pick Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Once you're airborne, you can never leave brag. So usually,
I was going to say, it's like you're homesteading there, right?
Yep. And once you get that identifier, the S identifier, it's Special Forces identifier that goes along, or I think it was Special Forces. No, what's the S identifier? I think it is. But it locks.
But then you're a little pigeonholed, right?
Right. You can't go anywhere.
There's not a lot of places to go.
No. So I was lucky to get the Hawaii assignment. And then when I was there too, right? So I worked at Shafter, but I worked for the 4-star. So I was like,
okay.
I wasn't on his commo team, but I ran his co-ops and stuff, all his conference rooms. Yeah. And I did so much work in there for VTCs and stuff that they were like, you know what? They started contacting me, like his commo guy. And they're like, hey, can you help us? And then next thing you know, I got so many coins. Like I have 3 4-star coins.
Oh my God. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was like AAMs all the time. It was like I was just stacking up the candy, but it was just fun because there was so much work that needed to be done and could be done.
Well, and you were successful at it too.
Yeah.
And you were seeing some of that. And you were an E6 by this time or not?
Yep, E6, because I got promoted when I was in Afghanistan. So, like I was E5, and then just 1 year, I got E6. So I did the board, but I had to wait a couple months because, the whole points were 798. Yeah. I think I had 670. And then all of a sudden they just dropped down, picked me up, and then went back up.
Oh, nice. Yeah. You usually don't hear that story. You usually hear, I had 670, they promoted 671. That's the story you usually hear.
And usually you wait months before. Yeah. And I only waited 2 months. And I remember it because my N2IC, Sergeant Reed, came in. And he comes knocking on my door because we were on some mission. Because he was a supply guy, but I fell under him. Yeah. And then I would help him with stuff. I'd be like, yeah, man, I got time. I can go. I'll travel with you. Yeah. And then that's when he knocked on my door one morning. He's like, hey, Staff Sergeant, time to get up.
Oh, that's badass. That's so great.
Yeah, that was a classic moment. I still remember it. I still even have a hat. He gave me a hat for my promotion ceremony when we did it. Yeah. And they signed it, and I still have it to this day.
Nice. That's crazy. Your first 2 NCO promotions are both in the desert. That's wonderful.
Never had one back here. I did have one back here. E7.
We skipped over. When did you get promoted to E7?
So E7, when I was in Maryland, that's where I got promoted. Right when I showed up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was there. I got promoted by my captain and first sergeant. They were pretty cool. It was a good time because we would actually have, we'd have drinks after work. In my commander's office. He's pretty cool. I mean, we had a pretty tight ship. Everything was good, and the Army keeps changing. Like they brought the new PT test, so we had to plan for that. And it was just fun. And then it was fun, and yet it was dragging on, how much energy can you really give and keep getting pulled out of you before you're like, I'm just done.
Yeah, it does when it's not fun anymore. Yeah, when you're waking up and you're not looking forward to going to work, and it's just like, oh God, it's kind of tough.
And I'm getting older, so I was like,
well, yeah, you have 10 years on everybody else. That's your equal.
Yeah, and I look at it this way. Yeah, exactly. And like the pay is like, it was good, you get your PH, you get your E7 pay, but I looked at it as I got to get my start in the civilian world.
Yeah. Because
I know you could always do your 20 and retire and just live with that, but I still wanted to work in the civilian side. So
Sure.
Had to call her quits.
Any regrets? Anything you do different?
Well, what I do different is I probably wouldn't train as hard. Like I like to hit the gym all this time, and I think I just tore my body up, and jumping didn't help. What I do different is I would have submitted that officer packet, and that would have been a different
yeah. That might have made a difference. Sergeant First Class Jesse Horwath, thanks for joining us today. That was a blast. I appreciate you just sharing your stories with me. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
On behalf of Sergeant First Class Horwath, I'd like to thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please leave a like or a comment and share the podcast with someone else. And as always, make sure to download the next episode for more service origin stories. So until next time, attention, dismissed.